Good God. I think we can walk from here.
We go record. Okay. Well, hi, everybody. It is April the 2nd. We're one day past April Fool's Day, so there's no April Fool's jokes coming. And I'm pleased to be joined again by Bart Marshall, and we are hoping to have another fantastic conversation. Hi, Bart, and welcome back.
Hey, Hattie, great having this time with you. Always enjoy
Thanks.
our conversations.
Yeah, it's so good. I was just said to Bart beforehand, Bart has been such an important part of my own journey and understanding what happened after my canyon experience. His writings and his lectures were so valuable to me. And so it's great to have him again for a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes both ways, Hattie, because I really appreciate what you add to our conversations. It's not just an interview with me talking. We exchange ideas, and I think a lot of good things happen when we get together.
Yeah. So I asked some people I asked my channel to give some possible starting points for us to have our conversation. And the first question that came up was from our last talk. You had come up with this idea of there's such a huge change going on in our reality that it's almost splitting into two. And it's like you use the metaphor of the need to build a spiritual ark or be a part of a group that's building a type of spiritual ark in this time. And these questions wanted you to maybe go into possibly more detail of what's your ideas around that concept.
Okay, sure. It's kind of throwing the word arc out, metaphorically, obviously, but just trying to get at the idea of what I really do see as a separation taking place right now, which I'm working a lot with the Bible. I'm just about finished with my own version, a translation of the Bible. It's only been 7 years in the making. So I'm very, conscious of what's talked about in the Bible these days. And there's so many different references to separating the wheat from the tares, the sheep from the goats, that there's this sort of, and of course the word judgment comes up, but a separation of the people into kind of those who will be saved in Bible terms and those who will not. The tares will be bundled up and burned and that sort of thing. And so and of course, obviously, Ark is from the flood, Noah, where, a very small remnant are chosen to be saved and everybody else, goes under. So it's in that context that what I see now is the separation between sort of the people who get it about what's going on now, let's call them the red-pilled people who can have the capacity for clear thinking and critical analysis and can do research and can see past the bullshit and are not, not brainwashed, not as brainwashed. We can't avoid it entirely, but not as brainwashed. They don't sit in front of their TVs and believe everything that mainstream media tells them. And they can see past what's being foisted upon us very obviously, really. Once you see what's going on, it's quite obvious. It's almost hard to miss it. And what is going on is leading to an event of some sort, which will even further separate those who get it from those who don't. And we do see people volunteering basically now to not get on the ark, that they are kind of beyond help for quite a while, for the last couple of years, maybe more. I and a lot of other people have been trying to wake up the sheep, so to speak, and come on, it's important. I don't know why it's so important, but it's really important that right now you understand that you're being brainwashed and you're being led to the slaughter in some way, and trying to wake up the sheep. In a way, people are, and more people have been waking up to what's going on, but there's a lot who are just so firmly entrenched, they will fight to stay ignorant. And we see a lot of that happening now too. They just are refusing to get on the ark, essentially. No, I'm not going to change my mind. I'd rather die ignorant than admit that I was wrong. And this has to do a lot with the recent, medical stuff that's been foisted upon us. And we see that's a very clear division between those who, just stand in line for the next medical procedure that's being mandated, and they get the third and the fourth and all that sort of thing, and fight to do so, and think that there should be more tyranny and more forced action in that regard, so that everybody has to have it done. And then there's those who firmly resist and say, no, my body, my choice. And that's a very clear division right now also, in how people view their bodies and who has control of their bodies. Does the government have control of my body, or do I, and that sort of thing. So I just see these clear divisions that are taking place in the population. And those that can see past the bullshit, those who are capable of critical thinking and independent research, are those who are getting onto the ark. And there's also spiritual aspects to it. The narrative, which I subscribe to, that the Earth and the people on it were moving. Earth was a third density planet, a third density dimension, a third dimension. And we've lived in that for thousands of years. But now there's a transition going on to the fifth dimension, fifth density, which is not a place, it's a frequency. It's like tuning into a different channel, a different level of consciousness, of the fifth density level of consciousness. And that's another very obvious, to me, separation that's taking place. People are refusing to change the channel. They just want to stay in 3D. They don't realize that's what they're doing. They don't even realize there is this going on. And then there's this other fairly significant and growing part of the population that really are part of the ascension process, the sort of the grand scale ascension process, the soul's journey, not just the character on Earth's journey, but the soul's journey. And they are consciously becoming a part of the ascension process and saying, yes, I'm ready for the next step. We call it, 5D, fifth dimension, fifth density, or whatever, a different frequency that is a significant upgrade spiritually on the soul's journey. So that's another separation that I see going on. And so when I talk about the spiritual arc, that's what I'm talking about. Is, opting for the higher frequency, stepping on the arc of ascension. Yes or no, are you ready for the next step? Are you courageous enough to be open to what's next? Or are you so fearful of change that you just want to stay where you are, regardless of whether that's a death sentence or not?
What's interesting is, from your sort of what we'll call it opening presentation almost, I wound up with 5 questions actually that came out of that while you were talking. So here's the first one. It's the way the word ark is used in general. Like you say, normally when people think of the word ark, they will think of the Ark of Noah, or of course the original one of Upanishad, right, of Babylonian, the same story. But what's also interesting is, of course, when we think in biblical terms, well, we have the Ark of the Covenant, right? Yes. We have another word which uses the word ark in two completely different meanings. And then you take that word into sort of into Gnostic terms, it turns into archon, which is a type of ruler. And we have this bizarre, which I've always thought about, this bizarre thing of history gets divided at a certain point in time between history and archaeology, as if there's a period of what's called his story. And then, but if you study further back than that, you're studying something completely different, which makes no sense, but they call it almost like archonology. So I'm wondering, this word ark has so many different meanings, particularly in the ancient world, to even contemplate what an ark actually is.
Well, this is why I love talking to you. You bring up some wonderful information and perspective on that just from the word arc. So first of all, thank you. I love talking to you. One of the reasons I love talking to you is because you have all these this knowledge and ideas about things. But yeah, you're right. It's like so many words, the meaning can go off in many different directions, and words, of course, in and of themselves, do more to obfuscate than to illuminate. So we're stuck with them, and we got to use words as best we can. But yeah, when I talk about it, it's really very loose, because it's not as cut and dried as Noah, where people are going to be killed if they're not on it. Although there is some expected die-off from recent medical things that will probably happen, but I'm not necessarily pointing to that with it. But I think of it more in terms of, let's just say that, the spaceship arc that is going to go to the next level of ascension. So whatever that vehicle is, that it will take us, will open us up to the next level of the ascension process. And of course, as you know, you and I both have had experiences of, we might call it ultimate truth, of seeing that we're the infinite clear emptiness of God. And so we got that going for us, which is nice. And so on that level of truth, we're talking about something completely different. But then there's also the soul ascension, which is part of the dream, the illusion, is the whole narrative about a soul that reincarnates over periods of time and that sort of thing, and the characters that we play. And so everything that we're talking about now we're talking about something which is essentially within an illusion. It's not the infinite clear emptiness of God, which cannot experience anything. So the divine God, needs illusory characters to go out into the illusion and bring back experience. We are the experiencing mechanisms of God. These infinite numbers of souls that are out there gathering all these experiences for, an omnivorous God that loves everything, loves every experience, and wants more and more of it. But there is, within this illusion, within this video game that we're born into, a hierarchy of experience. And Rose talked about it as the pyramid, spiritual pyramid, the spiritual ladder, which is a pyramid shape, which there's a pyramid structure, a ladder within every aspect of existence. An easy metaphor is the financial pyramid, and which on the bottom rung, which is very wide, you have the homeless and helpless and the people that are the bottom of society, and they're starving to death and all that sort of thing, and that's on the bottom, and all they think about is fighting and eating and survival down here. As you go up, as you go up, we go through middle class, and at the top you got the trillionaires. And so within that same way, there's a spiritual pyramid. And as seekers of truth, we place ourselves, what rung am I on? Being honest, self-honesty is so important. What rung of this spiritual ladder am I on? between the completely ignorant who just think about nothing but eating and fighting and reproduction, and the at the top of the pyramid, those who know ultimate truth. And Jesus, Buddha, anybody else that we might know of that we consider to have discovered true nature, what's really going on here, that we are born into a video game, a simulation, that sort of thing. Imagination in the mind of God, who have realized the true truth. Where are we on that pyramid? And on that rung with us are our fellows. We exchange information, and we, hey, have you read this book and whatnot? And then on the rung above, or possibly two rungs above, are people that have a higher experience of truth, and we can learn from them, and we can hear them because we're close enough to what they're talking about that we can understand them. 3 or 4 rungs above us, we can't even understand what they're saying. We can understand the language, what language they're speaking, but we can't understand the concepts. And so you can't reach too far up in your education. And below us, there's people that haven't got to the rung we are, and we can be their teachers. So we can help them. And Rose always recommended working on all 3 rungs at the same time. Work with your fellows, learn from those you can hear and learn from, and help those who can hear you. And so in that same way of talking about a hierarchy or an ascension process spiritually, there's towards ultimate truth, there's an ascension process towards relative truth within the video game, within the simulation, within this dream that we are living. There's a ladder of relative truth, and at the bottom are those we were talking about earlier that really just don't get it, totally brainwashed, and they're just automatons, they're robots in service to the controllers. And then as we go up the ladder, people that are more and more red-pilled, that really understand what's going on. They've gone down the rabbit holes, and they've come to realize that what's going on here is of major significance right now in history. We're alive in a time that is probably one of the most fascinating and important times to ever incarnate on Earth. We're going through something very major here. And the more you catch on to what's really going on, the more important it becomes that you see the importance of clarity. You see the importance of understanding what's going on, because it really, in some ways, is a life or death matter. Whether you will ascend to the next level of experience, if we'll call it the 5th density, whether you will tune into the frequency that will ascend, or whether you will more or less, let's just say, be left behind. And so that's what I mean by the arc. And I forget what your question was. I just kind of rambled, but are you ready? Do you have the courage, and are you ready to take the next step, to ascend to the next? In the Law of One, it talks about harvest. That souls are harvested for the next level, for the next density, for the next dimension, which sounds a bit harsh in a way, but in another way, it's very accurate in another discussion, that we are, crops for can be harvested. But graduation is another word. Are you ready to graduate? Step on the arc and graduate to the next level of ascension. Absolutely. The last thing you want to do is believe anything. Don't trade one belief system for another. Say, oh, well, I used to think this, but now I believe what Howdy says. No, you don't do that. You say, oh, well, that's interesting. I'll look into that. It's always belief is a big stumbling block. Any kind of belief system is an obstacle. Truth will not fit itself into any belief paradigm. If you have any hard and fast beliefs, it's an obstacle to truth. No matter how traditional and revered and profound the spiritual tradition might be, if it's a belief system for you, it's an obstacle to truth. Truth will not fit itself into any belief paradigm.